You're here for the house tour, right? Why don't you come on in, and don't forget to take your shoes off. Hey, my name is Jackie, and I've been living and working in Japan as an assistant language teacher on the JET program for the last 2 years, and today I want to show you around my apartment. So I want to preface this by saying that every situation is different, and I know this is kind of like a platitude that goes around all the JET program circles, but honestly it's really true. While we're all hired by the JET program, we're actually employed by separate boards of education, different municipalities, and that means that even between neighboring towns, things can be really different. So just keep that in mind, and let's get started. First, I want to start by talking about my rent. I have a 1-bedroom apartment, so I've got 1 bedroom, a living room / kitchen area, and a bathroom, and I pay about $200 a month for this. And that is really good, even in the countryside here. The building that I live in is actually subsidized government employee housing, which means it's going to be cheaper than normal rent around the area. I know that there are situations where JETs are actually living in houses that are owned by their boards of education, which means they pay even less or possibly even zero rent. Keep in mind this does not include utilities. I know that there are also situations, especially in Tokyo I believe, where JETs are expected to find their own housing that isn't subsidized, so that can be kind of on the more expensive side. But generally speaking, if you're out in the countryside, if your board of education has had JETs in the area for a while, you're gonna have pretty reasonably priced housing. Alright, so let's move on to the tour. Alright, so let's start at the front door. At the very front door. This over here is my mailbox. Mail comes in on the outside, I pick it up on the inside. And this first place when we come into the house is called the genkan. It's where you take off your shoes. I have a shelf of shoes here, as well as my winter shovels and umbrellas. And even if you're not used to taking off your shoes indoors, I highly recommend you do in a Japanese home. Most Japanese houses have at least 1 or 2 rooms with tatami mats for floors. And tatami mats are pretty easily damaged, dirtied, and they're kind of expensive. So if you want to get your deposit back, take off your shoes. So this is the kitchen, and as you can see, it's really bright and airy, and because it's connected to the living room, it feels a lot more spacious than it actually is. Something that I'm super happy about living in this apartment is the fact that it's been a JET apartment for maybe the last 5-10 years. So it's been constantly occupied and nobody takes their appliances with them, which means it came completely furnished. Some appliances that came with this apartment particularly that you can also find in basically every other Japanese home are a rice cooker, an electric kettle, a gas stove, which sometimes has a fish griddle on the bottom, but this one doesn't, and I'm completely okay with that. And then a microwave oven. So most Japanese homes do not have a full-size oven the way that we're used to having in the States. Instead, they use these microwave oven combos. If you're used to baking a lot, allow yourself some time to get used to it. It does work a little bit differently than a normal oven would, so be prepared for some mistakes. So this right here is the bane of my existence. This is the trash separation and collection schedule. In case you didn't know, Japan is notoriously strict about separating plastics from burnables, from non-burnables, from glass, and it can be a little overwhelming if you haven't really separated anything more than like bottles and trash before. Exactly how strict trash separation is really depends on where you live. Each town does it a little bit differently. That also means though that you can only buy your trash bags at the grocery stores in your town. Even if you're grocery shopping right in the town next door, you're not going to be able to buy your trash bags there because every town has its own rules. My town is not one of the strictest places, but it's pretty strict. I've definitely heard stories of people having their trash brought back to their doors because it wasn't separated well enough. And how do they find out, you ask? Well, because you have to write your name on the trash bags. Like, it is seen as your social community responsibility to separate your trash properly. Yeah, it took some getting used to, that's for sure. So one other thing of note in the kitchen is actually just behind the door. It's this little box right here. This box controls the hot water in the whole apartment. So the bathroom hot water as well as the kitchen sink hot water. The great thing about it though is that you can control the temperature down to the degree. So that means that I can actually just turn on the hot water tap in the bathtub without having to adjust both knobs because I know that the hot water will come out at exactly the right temperature. So we've just turned around and now we're in the little living room. It's a pretty small space. It's 3 tatami mats wide, so 6 feet by 9 feet or so. And like I was saying about tatami mats earlier, they're pretty fragile, so if you're going to put something like a table on it, make sure that the bottoms are properly padded so that you're not damaging the mats. So the reason most homes have tatami rooms is because Japanese families tend to spend a lot of time on the ground sitting at low tables, and I've actually got one too, back in that closet over there, and it is my favorite thing ever. I'm not using it right now, but during the winter I practically lived under it, and that's because it's a heater. So the table itself has a heater on the bottom, and you put a blanket between the top table layer and then the bottom part with the legs, and then you just stick your legs underneath it and it becomes the most comfy, warm, soothing, magical thing in the world. And honestly, I think that might be my favorite part about living in Japan. So one thing about inheriting this apartment from generations of Jets is that along with the appliances and furniture, which I'm so grateful for, I've also got a whole bunch of junk that I just don't know what to do with. Like, hold on, let me show you how much junk was left here. Can you see this? There's so much stuff here, and I'm not really sure what to do with all of it because, for one thing, it's so hard to throw things away here. Like, you have to know exactly how to categorize it, what day to put it out, and it's just a pain in general. But a lot of these things also seem to belong to the BOE. Like, there's stickers that say property of whatever, and so I'm not really sure what I'm allowed to get rid of and what I have to keep, but I'm gonna do my best to deal with all of that before I leave. So now moving on to the bathroom corner. In most Japanese homes, the bathroom is split into toilet and bath area, so they're not in the same room. Let me show you the toilet first. So I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bummed to find out that I did not have one of those really cool Japanese washlets with the heated seats and the water that sprays your butt. If you've never seen one of these before, this is a pretty common toilet in Japan where it's got the little sink on the top. So when you flush it, the water comes out from the spout on the top, you wash your hands up there, and then your used hand washing water will fill the toilet for the next flush, which is really cool actually in terms of water saving. So you see these not just in homes but also in a lot of public restrooms as well. And then we have the rest of the bathroom. So here is the sink area. This is a pretty typical sink, I guess, for a Japanese bathroom. I've brought along my American electric toothbrush. Thankfully for Americans, most of our appliances do work with Japanese sockets, everything except the 3 prongs. The voltage in Japan is a little bit lower than it is in the States, so don't expect, say, like your curling irons to heat up to quite the same temperature as it does in the States. And then over here we have the washing machine. It is just a washing machine, so no dryer. I'm sure you saw my laundry hanging up outside earlier. That's how I normally tend to dry my laundry, and that's how most people here do as well. But if you don't feel like doing that, or if it's winter and you can't do that, there are a ton of coin laundry shops all over the place too, even way out here in the countryside. And then over here we have the bath area. This is pretty typical. So one thing that I think might come as a surprise to a lot of foreigners is the fact that basically every Japanese bathroom comes with a tub. Soaking culture is really important here. If you've ever heard of Japanese hot springs and onsen, bathing is super important. And yeah, so this part is a normal shower. You can adjust it to be low or high. And honestly, the water pressure here is the best water pressure that I've ever had. And now we're on to the bedroom. So it's super simple. I've just got a bed, a desk, this closet thing because there's no built-in closet here, and a couple of shelves. And that is my apartment. That is my whole life for the last 2 years. It's treated me well. As far as jet apartments go, it's definitely not the biggest, but it's not the smallest either. I think it's been the perfect size for one person, and I hope that the next person loves it just as much as I do. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do, and hit the like button on this video. I will see you guys next week. Bye!